Hello everyone and welcome to this Selenium with Python tutorial. In this tutorial we will learn to handle a date picker. So let's begin. Date picker can be implemented in different ways. So for this tutorial I am taking an example of this website. So let me copy the URL from here and let me open this into the browser and let me show you. Let me open this one, and here you see that we have a simple date picker. We have a drop down date picker. We have an icon trigger based date picker. So in simple date picker, if I go here, click on this one, and then I will be selecting date. And here, if I need to change the month, so I need to go in this way, okay, and then select the value. And if I go to this other drop down, so basically if I go here the month and the year are drop down based, right? And after that I can select the date. And if I go to this trigger based icon one, so first I need to click on this one, then this pop-up will appear, and then I will click on this one. So for this particular tutorial I will be using this simple date picker, and in our next tutorial we'll cover this drop down date picker, because icon based is not different. We just need to click on the icon first, and rest we will deal with this one, right? So let me go to the PyCharm here and let me create a new file, and I'm naming it as Datepicker1. And the first thing is that we need basically a driver. So I will say browser equals to WebDriver dot, let's go with the Chrome, and now import the WebDriver here. And once we have this one, now we need to maximize this one, browser dot maximize window. And after maximizing, we need a URL to pass. So I will get a variable called URL and save the URL here. And let me copy this one, the date picker. So let me reload this one, or let me go here and copy the URL from here. Okay, so let me copy this one and let me go back here and provide the URL. Now once we have the URL here, simply we'll be calling the get. So browser dot get, and we'll pass this variable here. Now the first thing here is that we need to understand how this HTML is working here. So if you know how the HTML is working, then it would be easier for you to implement the automation. So let me go here and let me show you, because this is a bit tricky. And here if we talk about this particular simple date picker, this whole comes under a frame, right? And if I go here, if I click on this one, and if I go to inspect and go to the selector hub, so you see that this is the beauty of selector hub. This says that it's inside the frame, it's inside the frame, it's inside the iframe. So this means that we need to switch to the frame first, then we can interact with this particular date picker, right? But as I said, HTML is tricky part. You need to understand how your HTML is created. So for example, if you see this particular picker date by clicking on the text box, apparently it looks like that it's also inside the iframe, but it is not. If I go here and if I inspect this one, so you will see that, so this is out of the iframe. So this is the iframe, right? Inside this iframe we need to go and interact with this one, but this particular this particular element is out of the iframe. So this means that first, if I need to interact with this one, I need to close this one first, then I have to interact with the element. But before interacting with this particular date picker, I need to switch to the frame. Okay, so let's writing the script here. So first I will do is that I know that this element is out of the frame. So simply I will say I will driver dot find element and my dot, let me go with the XPath here. So import the by here and dot XPath and the value of this particular element. So let me go here, and for this particular element, we see that this is a relative XPath here. So let me copy this one and let me go back here and provide this one. And basically what we need to do is that if I go here, I just need to close this one, for example. That would be a better option. And let's spread this again. I need to close this one, and this is the relative XPath. So let's copy this one and let me update this one here. So paste this one. Now once we have this one, I simply need to click on this one so that we can close this particular element. Now the main part is that first we need to switch to the frame. Okay, so let me create a variable for this one. So I will say frame, you can name it anything. So browser dot find element and by dot XPath, and let's provide the XPath here. And the XPath is basically, if I go here and inspect this field, so this is the iframe, right? And iframe XPath. So simply I'll copy this iframe XPath and utilize this one directly. So let me copy this one and provide this one. Now we know that how to switch to the frame. So simply browser dot switch to dot frame, and we need to provide the name of this frame. Okay, so now we are inside this frame. So I'm putting the time sleep as well so that we can see the executions as well. So once we are inside this one, now let's identify the date picker. So for this I will say browser dot find element, and if I go here and inspect this date picker basically, so the XPath or maybe the CSS, so it has the ID, so that's ID. Let me show, so it has an ID and CSS selector as well. So let me copy this one and let me go back here. So I will say by dot, I will go with the CSS. I can go with the ID as well. So provide the CSS selector for this one, and the first thing is that I need to click on this one so that the calendar should open, right? So this is the one thing. Now the interesting part is to handle the calendar itself, and now there can be a multiple ways, but one thing as a tester, think from the testing perspective. And the testing perspective is that if you are automating the date picker or the calendar, then your test case might require to have the current date, might be based on the functionality. You might need to pass a date which is in the past, or you might need to pass a date which is in the future. So depending on your functionality, either you need to select a date which is in the future, maybe the current date, or maybe the date which is in the past. Now, if you want to do this, we will use the proper Python date and time to get the current date. So what I'll do is that I will create a variable called current underscore date, and in Python we have date time dot now, and here this date time needs to be coming from a different one, not this one. So basically, because you see that it doesn't have this now basically function. So for this one, I need to import, from date time, I need to import the date time, and there's one more thing called time data. I will explain you in a bit. So from date time, I will say import date time, comma, time delta. So these are two things which we need to import. Now you see that now the error has gone simply. So what it will do, this is the beauty. Date time dot now will give me a current date. So if your functionality requires to select a current value, so whenever you execute your script, it will pick up the current value, and you need to pass that value so that the calendar needs to pick the current value. So if you run this script 100 times, it will be picking up the current value. In a similar way, if we need to pass a date which is in the future, so we will be using this time delta for future and for the past as well. So let me show you how. So this will give me a current date. I will say next date equals to, so current date plus time delta, and here I'm giving a delta of the days. If I say 1, so 1 means that current date plus 1 date. So if today is 28th, so it will select the 29. So you can say delta plus 7, so current date plus 7. Similarly, if you want to select a value which is in the past, you will say minus 1. So minus 1 means that current date minus 1. So if today is 28th, then it will be giving us a value which is 27. So let me show you these things practically. Now, once we have this one, we need to format our date, because date can have a multiple formats. So if I go here in this example, so basically if you see that in this particular example, we have a particular format. So if I select this date, so we have this particular month, date and year format with the slash. So we need this format for this particular calendar. So for this one, what I'll do is that I will create one more variable called formatted date equals to, now I'll go with the next date dot, then we have this function called string ftime, and inside this we need to pass the format. So how we pass the format, I say %, m means month, then I say there would be a /, then I say that there would be a day, this is my format, and then I have the year. So this is the format in which I need my date. Okay, now once I have this one, so there can be multiple ways, but if I show you that this field is a text field, if I go here and inspect this one, so the type is inspect, the type is text here. This means I can provide this value directly. Instead of going and clicking here, changing this one, I simply provide the date here as an input. So I will go with this approach, and I will say browser dot find element by dot, we already have identified this one, but let me go again with this one. So basically this date picker, which we already identified. So you can, once you identified it, save it into the variable and then use accordingly. So I'm doing it multiple times here. So this is not a practice. Practice should be, use the variable. So simply I will say send keys, and inside the send keys, I need to, give this formatted date in my particular format. Okay. And plus. So whenever I go here, let me show you how the functionality works. So if I go here, you say 29/2024, it just type the value. But if I press on a tab, it will actually select the value. So I need to type the value as well as I need to click on tab so that it should get selected. Now if I go here and I will say, here we can be using the keys dot tab. So we have this, we need to import this keys. So this is coming from this WebDriver, and so basically when we have to interact with the keyboard, we will be using this Selenium WebDriver, and we need to import the keys for this one. Okay, so once we will import this keys class, we can actually interact with the keyboard things. Okay, so here I'm just sending this value and pressing on the tab, and I think we are good to go. And let me put one more time dot sleep here, and then finally what I need to do is that I need to quit the browser. Okay, and now let's run this one and see what happens. If we face any kind of issue and error, we'll fix it out, but ideally it should work, and it should close this picker date. Yes, it closed now. Now it should click on the date and select the date, and now you see that the date which got selected is 29th, right? And today was 28th, because we are getting the current date and we are giving a delta of 1. So if I give a delta of 2, so then let's see what happens. So delta means current date plus or minus as per your requirement. So this time it should be current plus 2. You see that 3rd March 24 is selected. And in a similar way, if you use this approach, your script will be stable, because every time you will execute this script, it will be selecting the value which is current plus 2, maybe current plus 7. So it will always select a future date. In a similar way, if your functionality needs to have a date which should be the past, then instead of 2, I will say -2 here, and the -2, so 26 should be selected. So every time I will execute this script, it will actually select the date which should be in the past, because we are picking the current date and minus the 2 days from this one. So this time it should, yeah, so 26th Feb 24 is selected successfully. And if you want to select the current date, so we already identify the current date, and here, but here we are not actually formatting the current date, we are actually formatting the next date here. So if I go with this current date here, it might pass some value here, but it might not be the format, it might not be the format which we need. So let's run this one and see what happens. So if you need to run the current date, you also need to format your current date as well. Okay, so there might be a different format. So you see that this time we got some problem here. So we are trying to format this one, and we need to format this one, and we got some error. This means that we need to format this one, and once we can format this one, then we can use. So for now, you can try this one, and as of now, just pass this month, and let's run this for a final time. And before that, even what we can do is that if days equals to 0, this might also work. Let's see this thing. So if I say delta is 0, sure, it should select the current date. So this might be a workaround for this one, but I'm not sure either this will work or not. Yeah, it shouldn't be working. So this means that actually, so not the next date, the formatted one. So let's run this one and see. So this workaround might work, but if it doesn't work, just format the date and then pass it accordingly. Let's see what happens. Oh, actually it worked and it's set to the current date. So using this delta power, you can even set the current date. Current date plus minus as per your requirement. So that's how you can work with this text-based date picker. In our upcoming tutorial, we will be covering the second date picker, which is here. I will go here and show you. So this is drop-down base, and we will go here. We have the values in the drop-down. So first we need to select the month, then we might need to select the year, and then we might need to select the date, which should be, again, it might be a current date, past date, and future date. And we will see how we can select this value. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. If you like our content, then do like, comment, share, and subscribe our channel. Once again, thank you so much and see you in the next tutorial.